are going to still be able to come back. Once we're ready for the divisional round, you're going to come back. You're not going to have bad practice habits. You're not going to, be rusty for that divisional game. Like who could you trust to not be rusty? I could think of a couple players who I wouldn't trust, and I'm not going to say him, but
Deebo.
his name. Yeah. I mean, you said it for me. But that's just one example, right? Like that's a good example, maybe an extreme example. But Kyle Shanahan, this coaching staff kind of knows their players, I think, enough to know, maybe this guy can use, this game. Maybe they need to be out there. Maybe, 2 weeks is a little too much for this player. So I'll say that, and I'll also say, and I've said it over and over again, mathematically, it's impossible to rest every player, right? So Kyle Shanahan is going to have some guys out there who we're going to be like, why is he out? Like, why is he playing in that game? It's meaningless. He shouldn't be out there, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of it is, again, it is mathematically impossible to rest every starter. Some of them are going to be important players, but they're still going to have to play even a little bit in this game. And also, again, you got to weigh the rust versus rest thing, and definitely don't want to, risk any rust either in that divisional game. So it's just having that balance.
Would you play like Aaron Banks? Because I'm thinking like obviously the guys, because you said like Christian McCaffrey, like the guys who are literally injured, but I'm thinking what about guys who maybe have been nursing injuries?
Like Trent Williams, for example, was injured,
but then that kind of goes, if you're not playing Trent Williams, are you going to play Purdy? You know what I mean? Because like
I get the concern with that. I mean, definitely, and that's part of like what you're kind of weighing, right? I think if Purdy does play, he's probably going to play a half. I don't see him like finishing that game. And if you do rest Trent, I mean, hopefully Jalen Moore would be available. He's been dealing with a concussion too, right? But I think I'd expect Jalen Moore to be available, and he can definitely start at left tackle. He's serviceable. Not your favorite option aside from like Trent, obviously, but you could probably play a half and Purdy would be okay, hopefully.
Michael says if Trent doesn't play, Purdy shouldn't be sitting in the pocket at all. So some debates going on with with our opinions. And then Deebo said that the starters are playing. He's not sure how long. He did say that on the Kay Adams show. Kind of came out and just said it. I wonder if it's because, I don't know if you heard it, but Sean McVay also in the Rams do like a little like sit down podcast with Sean McVay. They did it. I remember watching it last year too. But they asked him, and he kind of said that his game plan was to rest a lot of his starters. So I wonder if him and Kyle maybe are going to communicate about that. They, used to work together, used to be friends. I don't know how that works. I know that I feel like coaches do that sometimes, like in preseason, because you kind of talked about it being like that. But I don't know how much they would be doing that right now. I feel like in season, coaches turn into like, they're not collaborating really with each other. But maybe if both of them really are looking at this more like a preseason game, then maybe they'd be more open to doing that sort of collaboration. Maybe saying like, okay, we're not going to blitz. Like maybe they could ask for certain things or something like that. Do you believe in that? Is that a thing? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up as a fan.
I mean, I don't know if it's a thing, but if it would ever be a thing, it would be this, right? Like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, they're boys, like they're friends. Like, so I think that's definitely on the table. I mean, if I were Kyle, I'd definitely be hitting, Sean up and being like, hey, can we try to negotiate to get all our starters out in one piece and maybe just have them play a half here in this game? They can definitely do that, I think. I think it would be weird or, rub players the wrong way if Sean McVay told his team or Kyle told his team, like, hey, we're not going to hit anyone, like, don't hit anyone too hard. Like, that's just weird. That goes against everything that,
Pro Bowl game.
Yeah, exactly. Like that goes against everything you tell your football team to do. But at the same time, like I think you could just be like, hey, like no
Also,
dirty
like
stuff.
that, in my opinion, almost could lead to like injury in a different way because now they're
Yeah,
playing the game
you're
differently than they
right.
would
Yeah.
normally practice. Like I feel like if it's one of those things where if you're playing, you want to play. And if you're resting, you want to rest. You don't want to do like some weird in between thing where there's a mix of a lot of backups that could be clumsy and where you're trying to hit but not trying to go 100%. Because like your body over time, the reason that they have this practice and they have the preseason and they have training camp, it's like to get your body into that football playing ability, football shape. You don't want to, I don't know, I just feel like when you're doing half, you're trying to tackle but also kind of trying to hold yourself back a little bit, like that can lead to a different type of injury maybe than like what we've been
Yeah.
expecting. I think it sucks, but you kind of have to like have the mindset that like if it was a normal game and someone got injured, you'd have to adjust and live with that. And you have to kind of think about this game in the same way. Like I've heard some people say, like, if Brock Purdy plays and then gets injured, like Kyle Shanahan would get crushed. And it's like, well, if this game mattered and Brock Purdy got injured, that would suck too. You know what I mean? Like I don't think you can I don't necessarily agree that you can just like hold everyone out and then hope that it's all good. I do think they should only play for a quarter or for a half. You want to play enough
Hmm.
where you can practice all week long, you can, get a good amount of energy and physicality out, but then like you can kind of pull back and the 49ers luckily have kind of been able to do this in the fourth quarter anyways, a lot of their games, but maybe starting that a little bit earlier. Now, there is that problem is if you pull guys and then one of your backups get hurt, then do starters have to go back in? I remember against that Lions game, this was years ago now, that happened with Nick Bosa, and he said that made him way more concerned about injuries because you kind of like mentally check out of the game and your body
Hmm.
kind of cools down to go back into it. So there's a lot of I'm glad that I'm not a coach because there's actually a lot more that goes into this, I think, than
Yeah, for
people expect. I see a lot in the comments just like rest in everyone, only play backups. That's not you can only bring two players up from the practice squad. So there's literally not enough players to only play backups the whole
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I mean, I again, I think the only thing that maybe Kyle and Sean McVay should kind of agree on is like, okay, at what point in this game they're gonna decide to take the starters out. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a little much to ask them to change the way they play, change, their level of effort, how they tackle things like that. Like, I don't think that would go well. And you make the great point about, could that lead to more injuries? Yeah, we definitely don't want that, right? So I think as long as they can agree on, when that'll take place in the game, be smooth sailing from there. But I do agree with the aspect of, some players just kind of need to be out there to keep that momentum going, and then they can carry that into the playoffs.
Um, Sorry, I was putting someone. I've never done that before. I just put someone in timeout. I like that. That's such a
I'm
fun.
proud of you. I'm proud of you
That's
because I saw that comment and I was like, tisk tisk, Robbie.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Michael said, Rams are playing hard since they're playing for seating position. They're actually not. I think the way that it turned out in the NFC West, the teams that they've beaten and the fact that the 49ers are already the number one seed, that's why Sean McVay went on the podcast and said what he said. Both teams are kind of solidified in their position, no matter which team wins or loses. So that's the one positive thing, and that's why we are even like kind of talking about there might be an option where they would be working together on this. But yeah, I am interested. I now with Christian McCaffrey out, I think we saw a lot of Elijah Mitchell. He performed really well, and he's always. I feel like Elijah Mitchell, the narrative around him is difficult because one, we have seen Jordan Mason play so well when he has gotten
Hmm.
his opportunities. So there is kind of this like, and it feels kind of wrong that he hasn't been given more opportunities. So I think part of it is like there's a camp that wants to see more Jordan Mason, and then because of that, like Elijah Mitchell kind of gets slighted, and then also because Elijah Mitchell has been so injured, um, I just don't think we've seen it as much of him as we did his rookie year, where it was like really prevalent in fans' minds how well he was performing. But with the loss of not the loss, but with Christian McCaffrey resting, thank goodness. Which I mean, thinking about how well they came out of the bye week in the regular season makes me really excited for this. When you're talking about players you trust, you know that Christian McCaffrey is going to come out so ready.
Oh, yeah.
For the playoffs. But I'm really excited to see a healthy dose of Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason. Now, some people have speculated. Do you think that Christian McCaffrey's injury is an overuse thing, and they should have been utilizing Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason more, or do you think that this is kind of just a fluke thing? Good opportunity to see the younger guys, and knock on wood. Luckily, it seems like we skipped a major injury with Christian McCaffrey. So hopefully going on the playoffs, it'll work out with rested Christian McCaffrey and two running backs that both got a little bit of steam in this game.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that Elijah Mitchell, we haven't seen him out there this season is just because he's been hurt. And like that's kind of been the only thing that's gotten in his way. He's a really great back when, he gets his opportunities when he's healthy, right? We've seen it. His rookie year, we saw it. And I really think the 49ers would love to have that 1-2 punch available with the both of them. Unfortunately, like their time being healthy together, mostly because of Elijah Mitchell's availability, hasn't always, been there. That time hasn't overlapped. So, I mean, yeah, we're gonna get a healthy dose. No pun intended, a healthy dose of Elijah Mitchell on Sunday, with Christian McCaffrey out. But I would love to see more of it. I love to see more of it in the playoffs too, because I think that this last injury that Elijah Mitchell had, I feel like he was kept out of games maybe a little bit more than he I
Necessary?
don't- yeah, yeah, because I feel like they originally said it was going to be like a couple week thing, and I feel like he missed way more than that, and they were holding
Yeah.
him out of practice as well. And so I feel like that was to get him at 100% for this, stretch for the playoff run. And so I mean, yeah, that's great for the 49ers because if he can be healthy, he's going to be that 1A, 1B potentially. I mean, he has a talent to be that for this team. Now, as far as the usage of Christian McCaffrey goes, I haven't had a problem with it. I don't think it has led to any injuries. Like, you see Christian McCaffrey has a lot of nicks and bruises, but he plays through whatever he feels he can, and most of the time he feels he could play through anything. That guy's crazy. It almost makes me wonder if when he was with Carolina, like were coaches just letting him go back in because like he
Right? Like
wanted to go back so bad, and that's why he kept dealing with injuries in Carolina. Like he hasn't had the number
that.
of injuries. Yeah, he hasn't had the number of injuries with the 49ers, and I'm gonna knock on wood, my little 49ers like wood thing, because I hope that continues. But yeah, like I almost feel
If he
like
breaks
that's
his
part of the
leg
reason.
next game, we're throwing tomatoes at Steph's house.
I knocked on wood. I am safe. Uh, but yeah, like I think the 49ers have done a good job of saving McCaffrey from himself when it's come to that. Like this past game, keeping him out of that one when they got a good look at him, and I was like, no man, you're not going back in. So I think the 49ers have found a good balance of his usage while also like protect him a little too.